In this episode, we welcome back a previous guest, Lera, as board-certified OBGYN nurse practitioner who speaks on the things that she wishes women knew from her expertise. And today we are going to catch the second half of that episode, so stay tuned. Welcome to Unapologetically Woman, the podcast where women come together to share their unfiltered experiences navigating womanhood. Join us as we dive into candid conversations about periods, perimenopause, postpartum bleeding, miscarriages, and more. This is a safe space where we embrace the raw, real, and often unspoken aspects of being a woman. Get ready to be empowered, inspired, and heard. This is Unapologetically Woman. Welcome back, everybody, to Unapologetically Woman. We are here with Lera, the OBGYN board certified, nurse practitioner, We have to mention that she is a board certified OBGYN because you really need to understand the expertise in which she is coming from. And to have her come on and just be so vocal about what is happening in women's health is truly monumental, because not enough actually come out and speak the truth on what's happening in women's health. And a lot of people have been compromised. So to be able to be in her presence and have the no bullshit story is absolutely amazing. And there were some things that, you guys, if you didn't catch the first part, go back to the first part, because there were some things that you mentioned that started when you were younger, when it came to our cycle. And I feel a lot of us grow up with these two particular emotions, shame and being selfish. Mm-hmm. And just particular, like for me, my own story, I remember 6th grade, I was like, no, I'm not having children. Like, no, it's not happening. And it was a common thing, like, oh, I would hear, like, they would say things like I wasn't standing there. And they would just be like, oh, she'll get over it when she gets older, because I'm a female. So it's automatically expected that I'm going to want to have children. And as I got older, it was reaffirmed, like, no, it's not happening. I do not want this. And I was called selfish for not wanting to have children. Mm-hmm. And I just think that's very interesting when you mention that fact that, so many women, like when we do something for ourselves, if we're like, no, I want to travel and see the world, I want to focus on my career, we're selfish because we don't put our attention towards building a family. Mm-hmm. And that feeling, number one, but also the feeling of shame. Women are like, oh my gosh, I think people can see the pads sticking out. They don't want people to know. Even women who are working in these corporations, you don't want the other men to know that you're on your period. Why? Because of these comments that are going to be this stigma that's going to be made, like, oh, you're being a bitch. No, I'm being a bitch because you're an asshole, whether I'm on my period or not.
Exactly. That.
And that is the thing. It's like, okay, we need to stop making it normal for men to make a mockery of our health. Number one, like, we need to check that. Like, as soon as it happens, like, we really need to start checking them and stop making that normal. And even stop making it normal with ourselves and how we view ourselves. You're mentioning the body literacy, which I love, about getting in tune and how you were really able to connect with dancing. And I love that aspect, especially because, being a choreographer, I'm like, that is where it really, I feel like it starts when we get out of our mind, out of what society is putting there, and we start to actually feel what's happening in our body, things change. For me personally, when I started looking at my cycle as a beautiful ritual, I kid you not, my cramps stopped. Well, you're like, yeah, it happens all the time. And I would love for you to just kind of like reiterate on the functional medicine and the holistic side of, and the benefits of women just getting in tune with, like you said, this superpower that we experience every month. It's not a weakness that a lot of women like to see it as, and maybe possibly how they can undo that. How can they start undoing this aspect of seeing it as a weakness and actually start seeing, like, dude, this is my superpower?
Mm-hmm. It's a sexier question has not been asked. What I think is so much has happened right now where I tell people all the time that we're we're in this really interesting shift where women have almost gotten so angry, right? So like, what the fuck happened that we overshot it, in my opinion. And we overshot it and we kind of wound up like on a different planet where I see a lot of different clients, and I see well-known clients, and I see authors, and I see mamas, and I see company owners, and people make their way to me in many different ways. And some of them that make their way are like, oh, don't worry, honey. Like, I run the moon circle. I run this. I'm super in tune, and I'm in a sweat lodge, and I am like, all my crystals are all over my face, and I am the moon goddess of my cycle. And I'm like, okay, slow down, back up. You missed the boat. And so there's something happening here where they're like, oh, I was so ashamed and I was so guilty, but don't worry, now I've reclaimed all of it. And I'm like, you are full of shit. Absolutely not. No, because if it's still in this, the fusion that's missing, the way that I'll say it, is that some people overshoot it and they still don't understand the biology. And some people are so fixated on the biology that they can't let it go. And they can't move into it, into this more beautiful mystical realm, this alchemical realm, right? That's why I talk about it as female alchemy. It's feminine energy is soft, right? We've grown up with masculine energy, just like you. How dare you not have children? How dare you? The world is really underpopulated. How dare you want to live for yourself, right? There's this idea that if you are good, you are a martyr. If you are good, you must give it all up, right? You must crawl on your hands and knees because a woman who is standing is a woman who is weak, right? So I'm telling women all the time that you start fusing these two worlds of like, I'm a beautiful goddess, and like, you're still kind of a bitch. Relax. And this woman was just like, all I need is medicine, and I just need meds. And I'm like, you need to chill. What happens when these two worlds just slowly start flirting with each other? What if we start saying, please be a model and not a martyr? All right. You have the wellness space right now that has its place, but really a lot of it's a flaming piece of shit. Because now what we're telling women is, you must be vegan, you must be this, you must be clean. Here's my like 4-hour morning routine. And so I'm never someone's first person in line. They've seen usually a lot of doctors. They've seen naturopaths. They've seen health coaches. I joke that I'm like the weirdest pot at the end of the rainbow, right? Like they have found me. And so when we get here, oftentimes I'm like, and I actually say this as an entry question. I'm like, I will give you $100 if you can tell me, yes, I actually know that as a woman, I'm supposed to poop out my hormones.
Oh.
I have yet to actually give anyone $100. Exactly. So what we're doing now is, before someone's like, I'm a goddess, and before someone's like, my body's so broken, it's this idea of, how do we fuse biology? You can only go as far as your nervous system deems safe. That's it. You can only go as far as your nervous system deems safe, and you can't heal in the same environment that got you unwell. Right? So if you start backing up and saying, hold on, please don't spiritually bypass just yet. Please don't like go all the way over here thinking nothing can touch you. Because if you don't know that you're supposed to poop out your hormones, if you don't know why every single woman with a hormone issue, which if you have a problem with your cycle, you have a hormone issue. A hormone issue is never the root cause. Ever, ever, ever. Hormones are just messengers. That's it. Hormones go through your liver. Hormones go through your gut. Estrogen, one of our main hormones, is meant to get pooped out. So until we do this, here's this fusion of biology and bliss, this fusion of medicine and alchemy, this idea of, you must know what you're pooping out. Like, what is it? You must know, what's the point of your liver? It's deeply tied to our hormones. You need to make sure your digestion is okay. You need to make sure that your nervous system feels safe, because just like you said, you start developing a better relationship with your cycle. Why'd your cramps go away? I can actually, like, if there's something so sexy about being able to biochemically explain it, right? If you all of a sudden are saying that, you know what, I'm going to reestablish a relationship with my cycle. You probably weren't just saying, I'm going to live exactly the same way, do exactly the same shit. You started, whether consciously or subconsciously, making changes. Maybe you started telling yourself, I am worthy. Maybe you started slowing down. Maybe you started eating breakfast. Maybe you started going to sleep earlier, just not on your phone. Small changes, foundational changes, right? Monumental changes. These little things add up. But what happens is these little things are currency. They're currency into our debt deposit. Most of us as women, that 10 years that you talked about, we go into so much debt, quote unquote, not, sometimes it's a literal debt. We get into so much biological debt, right? We're not sleeping, or you're in high school, you're partying. You're not sleeping because you're partying. You're not sleeping because you're a perfectionist and you're studying, right? No one teaches us good, healthy behaviors. I talk to women who are like, don't worry, I'm super clean, right? Like I mentioned, I'm vegan, and I'm like, you are annoying. You just relax. Like, hold on, like life is meant to be lived. What are you doing? Okay, that's great that now you became a robot. Frankly, how do we actually get into our bodies? Where I tell my clients all the time, they're like, where are you going? I was like, I'm going to Argentina. They're like, why? I'm like, I don't know, probably to drink Malbec and to dance. And I'm also gluten-free. And I also take deeply good care of myself foundationally. And I now know how to, so that I can do whatever the fuck I want.
Yes, I agree.
Powerful.
Yes.
And, so then speaking back to that, then we have this idea of women who are like, to feel my cycle, I have to be a perfectionist. And I have to be all right. Or other women who are like burned out. They're in hustle culture. They're grinded. They're whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Both of these women, like I was saying, biologically, biochemically, are not taking care of themselves. So let's say you want to note your cycle, something's going to change, right? Whether you know it or not, chances are you know some of it, and it creates this beautiful domino effect. Inflammation is caused by a bunch of different things, but inflammation is a little like this red light that turns on in our bodies. It's a little like a big red button that gets pressed, that's like a siren, where your entire immune system is like, oh, cool, we should be freaking the fuck out. Great. Inflammation is real. Right? And so what most women don't realize is stress is like a fire. Inflammation is like this fire that needs to be stopped. And sometimes it's really good for us in little bits and pieces, right? You get hurt, you get a bruise, you literally can see inflammation, that should go away. But as women, from the onset of our cycle, we are put into these conditions chronically. And then later we don't know any better, so we choose them. Whether it's our relationships, whether it's toxic relationships, whether it's toxic houses literally filled with mold, whether it's gut infections, whatever, these things that create inflammation. Stress creates inflammation. Stress literally punches holes in our gut. Stress is all around us. Your body doesn't know if it's stress because you literally have a parasite and mold and nutrient deficiencies and whatever, or if you just are stuck in traffic trying to get to a job that you hate, right? Ancestrally, both of them are just the bear that you're trying to run away from. It's stress, so it punches holes in your gut. It lowers your stomach acid, which we really need to break down food. Next thing you know, you're a woman who's bloated. Next thing you know, you're a woman who feels unwell, but no one listens to you when you're unwell, right? Maybe there's a pill for that, right? Who knows? But no one hears us, right? And so then the cascade starts, and the cascade is actually really beautiful. But like you said, that first 10 years, we're just getting more and more in debt. You are now more sleepless. Okay, now you're 50 grand, theoretically, in like biochemical body debt. Now you're 100 grand. Now you lived in a moldy house. Now you had 4 shitty boyfriends. Or now you had more periods that are getting worse. So now you have less hope, right? Now you've just lived longer. You've been exposed to more shit. That's it. And so usually, like you said, about 10 years, 15 years, women are out of school, or they're out of that first pass of like adulthood. They're in like their mid-20s and they're like, I can't do this. I'm not well. And then they start looking for answers and no one gives it to them. But the stress has started. The inflammation has started. Our gut has literally been altered. Remember I said it punches holes. Stress can literally punch holes in your gut, but your gut is thin. So then things start literally coming through your gut into your blood. That's where your immune system lives. What I wish women knew is that your immune system and your gut pretty much live together. 80% of your immune system lives in your digestive tract. But your immune system is what regulates inflammation. So now you have this super stressful life and this super shitty period and this relationship that works for now, and everyone thinks you're a bitch because you don't want to have kids, right? And how dare you take agency over your body? But it still matters, right? Because there's not this village behind us. Usually that's like, you go, girl. Like, you get it. Oftentimes we feel alone, right? That's what a lot of us like me are trying to combat. I just don't want women to feel alone anymore. And you deserve to feel good, not just not alone, right? You can have it all, just please choose wisely. Don't think that it all is what you should have. Choose your all, right? What do you actually want? You don't want to have kids? Don't have them. You want to have kids? Have them. In either case, know your body. And so then your immune system lives in your gut, right? The gut has holes punched in it because your life, your period, your infections, whatever, all of it comes together. But when we're in the blood, things travel, right? They travel all over. So inflammation travels. It's literally signals, like they're real, and it travels to the point of weakness for each woman. So here's where things get interesting. What do women take when they have period pain?
Ibuprofen.
Exactly. Why didn't you say Tylenol?
Oh, that's funny.
It doesn't work for most women. Why? Because ibuprofen specifically, biochemically, I'll get just a little bit deeper for a second and we'll bounce back, but I love when women can speak big science, right? But ibuprofen by nature is something called a prostaglandin inhibitor. Super fancy word. All it means is it just inhibits prostaglandins. Prostaglandins are just little things in the body that can cause a lot of inflammation. When we have period pain, we have a lot of prostaglandins. Tylenol is not a prostaglandin inhibitor. So every single woman develops this deep relationship with ibuprofen. But ibuprofen affects our gut. If you take ibuprofen for 5 days straight, you could be temporarily infertile for a few days. But what if those are the few days that you can get pregnant? Right? Maybe that delays your period. Maybe that delays your ovulation. It's so beautifully tied together. So what we've told women is pop ibuprofen. No one says that it causes massive GI distress. But homegirl, you're probably undergoing a ton of GI distress already. So it's a vicious cycle. You're just trying to get out of it. So inflammation travels, but the source is often the gut. Wow. And it travels to the point of weakness. So that's why some women are headache girls. Your inflammation, that's why other women are like, I don't get headaches, so I sure as shit get eczema. Or other women who are like, I'm okay, but my knees always hurt. I have joint pain, right? Or I have IBS. IBS is not a real thing. IBS, irritable bowel syndrome, is just a diagnosis of exclusion. It's just a cluster of symptoms. It just means we don't know what the fuck is wrong with you, but we know you definitely aren't comfortable. And you're either shitting your brains out or you're constipated as shit and look like you're 24 months pregnant, right? There's root causes to all of these things. So as you go inflammation hunting for women, right, at that source, all of a sudden, their cycles get better. All of a sudden, they slow down. All of a sudden, you implement foundations. You start thinking you're worthy. You stop martyring yourself out as much, oftentimes, because honestly, you're too sick at this point, right? I have women who are finally happy they're hospitalized. That's happened to me so many times where women are like, thank God I'm finally in the hospital. It means I finally have an excuse to do nothing, right? As women, it's been demonized for us to rest. I talk about this all the time. We're not allowed to rest. Why? Because we've been conditioned for productivity. We've been conditioned for hustle culture. So if we rest, it's not even that we forgot how. We feel unproductive. We feel lazy. We feel selfish. If we have an addiction, which we do, to rest, if we have an addiction to productivity, then when we stop that addiction, we go through withdrawal. So when women rest, even in my practice, I warn them that when I ask you to rest, it's probably going to feel like shit because you're going all the time. And when you pause, you might actually feel symptoms of detox. You have a to-do list that needs to be done. You need to plan a vacation. You need to plan an unvacation. You need to go. You need to be productive. You need to be worthy. That's in the debt bucket. That contributes to your inflammation. Inflammation travels, right? Inflammation travels to the point of weakness. That's different for every woman, right? And so our lives have become this cycle that we can't get out of enough to actually align with our actual cycle, what's literally happening to us, our cyclical monthly pattern. And so that's a lot of what I do, is because the first 10 years, you're resilient enough, you're young enough, your cells are like feisty enough. There's not as much DNA damage that we can still handle it. 10 years, right? We have a full replenishment that happens in our bodies. It takes about 7 years. So from the point of onset, 7 years later, you literally have a different body. So for a lot of women, that 10-year mark or that 7 to 12-year mark is, wow, I've been on birth control a really long time. And I'm like, yeah, but did you read the package insert? Because I'm a birth control specialist. I was literally one of the ones that put them in. I put in hundreds and hundreds of IUDs, right? I tell people, don't deny anything. Just ask questions, think for yourself, and find people who can support you, right? Because now I tell people, okay, I was on Neuroscience. I never read the package insert. It literally depletes your nutrients. That's literally what it does. But you need those nutrients to combat inflammation. So when you get off birth control, now your periods are even worse, right? So it's this absolute spiral that we've put women in. And fundamentally, if you just like funnel it down to be like, hey, you're supposed to poop out your estrogen. It lives in your gut. This is what the liver looks like. And at the same time, here's the secretness of it, right? Here's the alchemy. Here's how you even remotely start repairing your nervous system so that you can slow down, so that you can actually start repairing parts of these other things that works together, and you are worthy. Slather that on top, and you have women who actually can transform. They certainly sure as shit can transform, but you just need to be slow, and our culture doesn't value slow.
Wow. When you talked about transforming, I feel like that's exactly, not only for me, but for other women, is exactly what happens when you start to become in tune. And like you said, like for me, honestly, when I became more in tune, I started craving. I started keeping track of my energy levels, my cravings, my mood, and also it just happened by accident that I noticed that my period would always come on the full moon. So I started actually using the moon as like a tracker, as like my time. So I'm like, oh, new moon, okay, I'm ovulating. Like, and that's what I used it for, you know? And then it's like, oh, okay, full moon's approaching, my period's about, like, and it was just like, it just so happened, like, because I was tracking, I noticed that correlation. But then I noticed, oh, I'm craving carbs, and carbs was taking my cramps away. Like I would crave more protein sometimes and it would take my cramps away. And I'm like, oh, wow. Like, and it was just noticing like and honoring those cravings and knowing that it was okay. And then it's like when I took it in, my body was like, great. I already know like that second day of my cycle, my body is all about blueberries. I don't know what it is, but my body is like, I want blueberries. Like, and that's just the way it is. Like, literally, like, my second day is where I feel like I'm kind of fasting, but juicing. You know, I'm getting in my green juice, my blueberries, and I get my protein. And then, like, the third day, I'm still juicing a bit, smoothies, but then I start to incorporate a little bit more solid foods. And then as I keep going, then I get more. And I just honored what I was feeling. And that's how I just started developing it. And I was just like, oh, wow. Like, it was really that easy, like, to do.
It's profoundly, it's both easy and so hard because we're like, how dare we focus on ourselves?
Yes.
And I don't think I even mentioned this. I created a literal like cheat sheet for women on even the words to use. Because when women bleed, I'm like, that's called being off. You're in the act of being off. It's called hibernating, right? There are certain foods that help. I like to remind everyone that like when you bleed, when you have a period, when you bleed. And they're like, look at me. I'm like, you do realize blood is coming out of your body, right? People get a paper cut and they're like, oh my God, this is a lot. You have blood coming out of you, right? Your body's going to want certain things. The single number one thing I see in my practice is that women do not eat enough. Every single woman, they do not eat enough, and they've demonized carbs. So they go keto or they do whatever they can, right? What I wish women knew, again, you hear me say this all the time, oh my God, what I wish they knew, is that after you ovulate is the only time you make progesterone. You only make progesterone after you've ovulated because progesterone is made by the sac that released the egg. So the egg is gone, the sac's left over, and initially that's what makes it. Why does that matter? Because progesterone makes us hot. That's why our temperature goes up. But progesterone also needs more sugar. So we physically need more carbs. So guess what became really, really in? Fasting. There's a right way to fast. You don't fast after you ovulate, for example, because your hormone literally needs carbs. You should be hungrier. Your metabolism has changed. Your hormone literally is like, why am I spending so much gas? You need, right? You're going to give it to me. And we're over here being like, actually, I'm juicing. I'm like, stop juicing. But no one taught us progesterone's only after. It literally needs more elevated blood sugar to do its thing, right? So there's certain foods that I literally make lists of it for women. And then I tell every single woman, take it with a grain of salt. I'm such a fabulous woman to take suggestions from because half the time I don't give a shit. I just want to live a really vital life, which means I'm not doing crazy spreadsheets. I'm not whatever. I'm just like, I just want to make you a little more unfuckwithable so that you can go and live what you want to actually live, not live by the book and like make sure that everything is just like obsessive and you can't do any of it. So I'm like, here's a list of these foods, right? Maybe you pick blueberries like you did. Maybe you look at, I'm like, cyclical living, I do it 20% of the time. I'm just aware of it. Like you said, the new moon, the full moon. Fun fact, I've worked with men who do not bleed. I have still timed them. I live in the Bay Area. So I've had certain men I've had women and men who are really successful. And they run companies. These companies are like going to go public, whatever. I've had certain men where I literally timed the IPO of their company. No one knows that there's a woman in the background doing her mystical, alchemical, energetic, whatever, who can back it up with science. And I'm like, hey, maybe you want to the dates? Let's actually time you. You're a man. You have a 24-hour testosterone cycle. That thing regenerates every day. And then we expect women to show up on a 28-day cycle for men who function in a 24-hour cycle. And I've had them even time their companies or big events to the moon. And they're like, what the hell is going on? They're like, this was our best quarter ever. And like, you don't say. We're all cyclical beings. The earth is cyclical. The moon is cyclical. Like, you're not that great. You're part of it, right? You're cyclical. And so if for a lot of women, they just don't know where to start. So that's kind of like where I come in a little bit. Like, I love what you said about it's just your energy. It's just your cravings. It's just your moods, right? If bleeding is being off, I want women to have language that after your bleed, you enter the time where you're turning on. It's from winter, you go into spring. Maybe you're making a little bit of plans, right? Maybe you're like, I'm going to start like making some projects. I've literally straight up told women, do not break up with someone when you're off. Don't, like, if you're going to do it 2 weeks from now. Because as we enter our relation, you're in summer, right? You're being on. You went from turning on to from being off to turning on to being on. That's a time where I'm like, ask for that promotion, go on that vacation, break up, get together. Who cares? You're the woman that all of a sudden is like, oh my God, I am amazing. That is going to change in about 4 days. And now all of a sudden you're going to start turning off. Before you're being off, you're turning off. You're going from winter to spring to summer to fall. Act like it. I tell it to women all the time, fall is sweater weather. Act like it. Oh my God, this is the time for warm things, cozy things, sweaters. This is the time to be like, you know what? Instead of that, like, rave, whatever, you're going to read a book. Or like, now don't feel guilty for Netflix and chill or book and chill. Like, this is the time where you need it. And so I think even having language, even having something where you literally start feeling powerful over like, wow, I'm turning off, right? Oh, I'm being on. That's the time you want to wear red lipstick. You want to wear big hoops. Like, you can wear that all the time, but you can see that sometimes you're going to gravitate towards this like moment where my mood is great. I feel like fasting. Right, depending on your hormones, I think most women
right.
Like, it's just this power. Think of what we could do for women if they could say things like, yeah, I need to poop out my hormones. What happens to so many women who are constipated, who are not living cyclically? If you're constipated, 100% you have a hormone issue because your hormones ain't pooping. You're not pooping them out, right? So it doesn't have to be complicated. So we kind of go back to these beautiful foundations and say, like, here's this, like, tease this out. And then what do? We start replenishing the debt, right? And some women are like, I don't feel better. And I'm like, relax, Martha. It's been a week. You felt like this for 25 years, and you put $10 into an account that's $500K in debt. But keep putting it in. Compound interest is real. $10, $20, a little bit here. Like you said with you changing your mindset. Yeah, that's so hard, but it's very possible. This feeling of worthiness it's possible. All of that contributes to it. And before we want to feel like we make millions, just get to zero. The zero actually feels pretty profoundly full of possibilities, right? Where are you going to go? And so that's huge in my practice, because I used to talk just about the mechanism of action of drugs. Right? Here's your pill for this, and here's the antidepressant for this. And what if we use that same level of thought for the body to prove that we're so damn beautiful, but we've deserved the right to understand our biology, and we've deserved to fuse it with the feminine divine.
I flippin' love this. I do, because the things that you're saying, it's just very interesting that, like, I don't have the clinical study, but naturally my body just gravitated. And it's like you said, literally, I am like all about carbs, like pretty much like the whole week before, like I am going in. And I started honoring that. I'm like, more food. And even the headaches, if I would notice I would get headaches, it would either be I didn't eat enough, but actually most of the time it's because I just didn't eat enough. And it's like, oh, okay. So as soon as like a little headache comes on, it's like, oh, I need to eat more food. And it's like, okay, I know nausea is going to kick in on this particular day. I'm not holding any meetings. I'm not going to be productive. I'm going to be in a shitty mood. And you know what? I'm going to grab my chocolate chip Haagen-Dazs and I'm going to binge for an hour right now. And that's okay. And that is part of the thing, you know, the mention of shame earlier, right? Women feeling ashamed to take that time off. You're ashamed to, you know, one of the things that I advocate for is period days, you know, not PTO, period days. Like these women who are afraid to say, I don't feel well because they feel like they have to compete with their male counterparts, you know, and you were explaining we're on different types of clocks here and that needs to be honored. It's not something to say, oh, one is better than the other. It's just simply say, no, I am woman. This is part of my health. Respect it. Just respect my differences. Like, that's it. Like, it's really that simple. And, you know, we don't have time to continue it today, but I would definitely love to bring you back on to focus, I want to say like on like the hormones. You know, I would love for us to have like a episode of just you focusing on like, you know, the hormones and what women should expect. You know, it's like, okay, well, if this is happening, it might be because of this, in relating that biology with like, you know, you said that feminine alchemy, like I really think would be a great episode to just bring all that together.
I would love to. I would love to, because even just to comment on what you said, those period days, I want to actually take it one step further. Right now, women are advocating and they're like, I just have a day where I feel like shit and I just don't want any expectations of me. You deserve to have a day where you don't feel like shit. You just don't want to do something, right? I don't want women to feel like we've been conditioned to suffer. That's it. So now women are like, I deserve to take that day off. I'm like, you deserve to take that day off because it's the Tuesday, not because you're so in pain. Why are you in pain? Why is that inflammation high? Because then it comes down to the fact that in my perfect world, women get that day off just because they want to slow down. That's it, just because you're hibernating, not because you're in pain or suffering, right? So I would love to speak further. I speak about it all the time. And especially because I really want women to understand that when we speak about these hormones, a lot of it has just been missed, right? So much has been missed. That's what we're actually looking at. It's not that it's so complex and over your head. It's that the foundations were never taught. And so if we teach hormonal foundations, it's more of often women being like, oh, that's what that is? Hold on, let me write that down. What word did you say? I'm like, the point is not to prove that I have a big old brain. The point is to literally prove that we can access these things in their simplicity. And if we start speaking, I work with wonderful women. I'm sorry, if you can launch a project plan for like 300 employees, or you can choreograph an entire like theater, you can absolutely understand the basic mechanics of the body that we were never taught, that you can then invest into yourself, right? So I would love to, I mentioned that's why my practice books out so far, is as a result, I'm literally creating a course. It's called Hormone Alchemy. It's exactly this for women. It's exactly getting to the foundations, because the foundations were missed, right? Imagine telling a woman that there's another thing you have to take on. That's why so many women just rob themselves of this opportunity, because they're like, I can't take on another thing. I can't learn this entire new language, right? It's already happening to you. It's literally already happening, and it's not that complicated. And when you do that, it feels more like a treat than an I have to. So I would love to. I love that you're doing this. I love that this is someone not in clinical medicine who's going after this and saying, we damn deserve this. So thank you.
Thank you. I'm like, there's like so much information that I'm just like, dude, like we need to listen to this on repeat. And one of the things, like, I love how you gave us the foundation. And I think this is a great way to actually end the show. You gave us the foundation. First, start tracking what's going on. Second, make sure you're communicating with a clinician that you trust. And I like how you say intuitively. making sure that they're actually concerned about what is going on with you in a holistic manner. And if they're not giving you that attention that you want and desire for yourself, then it is your priority. It's your responsibility to go somewhere else. It is up to you to start taking accountability for your own health and to start standing up for it and be like, hey, this is what I want in my healthcare. Are you going to provide this? Okay, I'm going to keep moving, and that's the way to really start to, I want to say hit them where it hurts. When you stop getting patients in, what's going to happen to your business? So maybe you'll start changing your policies. Maybe you'll start treating women differently. Maybe you'll start listening to them, because so many women come on and they said, I've talked to my doctor, and they brush off my nausea because it's like you said, oh, you're a woman. You're going to suffer. That's what you're meant to do, is suffer. Even on, I don't want to get into religion, but even religious levels, that's how they portray women, that, oh, you're cursed. And it's dude, what? God said I'm cursed because I'm a woman? And we feed into this stuff. And it's very unfortunate.
It's very unfortunate. And I think what winds up happening, you hit the nail on the head, but I'll challenge that just a bit and say that I don't think women can advocate for that from their clinicians, because a lot of really, really have their heart in the right place. We were literally never taught. We're all just as sick as them, right? The entire system the system is broken. I went into it with so bright-eyed, bushy-tailed. I've cried in so many storage closets. Right, I've cried with so many of my colleagues as people would just bleed into my hands, right? You're just I just want to help. It's the fact that a new paradigm is starting. I don't want women to feel like they have to be adversarial to the clinicians. The clinicians are actually, not all of them are good, but right, there's good people everywhere. It's the fact that I want women to be aware of the fact that there's a new paradigm. There's those of us who have left because the system is broken, and that system is changing, but it's changing slowly. I want women to know that there's a new place to look, right? That there's those of us, because as women, what we've done is we've put more and more on our shoulders. Oh, there's the patriarchy, and there's the system, and then there's corporate culture, and then there's this. And it actually just makes us smaller and smaller and smaller. If we want to, as women, feel more expansive, then what we're saying is, you know what? Those people don't actually need it. There's a time and a place for that, but I run labs differently. I love science. I keep saying science is sexy and magic is real. Those are the two things we need to know, but we were never taught magic, and we were taught limited science. That's science that's meant to make sure that you're not dying, but we weren't actually taught to make sure you really feel like you're living. We just weren't taught, right? It's a system hasn't been in place for a really long time. It's pretty new. And so now what I want women is to feel like, what does it feel like to have that expansive energy of there is a place for me to go? And I cried to my doctors being like, look at me, I am sick. And I've had doctors that cried with me and said, I know, but I don't know how to help you. I'm so sorry. Right? So it's the new system that's starting. That's the beauty of it, is I want women to understand words like holistic and functional medicine, integrative medicine, nervous system repair. Language is so powerful that it's less of trying to fight your way into a system that system let me down. System is fabulous if you have an emergency, but it's let a lot of us down who are just unwell, but not diseased. There's a new world, right? That's what I want women to get excited about. There's a new world of those of us where that system did let me down enough. Instead of being angry and sick, I left. Right? I tell women that all the time. You don't like it? Do something about it. Do something about it. So I did. And there's women like me doing it. I'm not alone. It's very, very powerful. So find us, right? I do not gatekeep information. As you can tell, I just talk about it all day. And I'm like, I don't believe in protocols. I think they're trash in almost all cases. When people are like, I do this cleanse and this protocol, I'm like, We question it first. We make you feel safe first. That doesn't require you buying my supplements. That doesn't require you doing my diet. That requires you learning about you. And we're all way more similar than we were initially led to believe. Right? So that's where it comes in. So I published this. I send out newsletters. I'm just like, here, take the information. So I literally have a foundational starter kit for women where I'm like, this is just free information. A lot of this is cheap or free. A lot of this is already there. It's just yours for the taking, right? And so it really helps create a level of trust instead of animosity, because that system might change, but not in any way where I think it's going to be what women deserve just yet.
Oh, wow. That is so beautiful. And we're going to actually end it right there. We are going to end it right there where seek out Lera. Okay. Like literally, but not only that,
I love them. I love, they deserve that.
Yeah. Seek
So,
out the new world. Okay. Seek out the new world. That's a great information, because women should know that we do have that alternative, and using that language, integrative, functional, like that is all this we need to bring back for the second episode, because equipping women with that type of language first, is, like you said, that is where the power starts, is where we get the knowledge. But the power actually comes when we apply it, when they actually start seeking the new world. It's like, okay, I know the information, but if you still decide to go this way and expect a different result, I mean, isn't that like the definition of an insane person? So I'm not saying you're insane, but you meet the definition,
so far. Exactly.
Yeah. That's it. And you know what? Thank you, Lera, so much for joining us. And I am so excited. We are definitely going to have a part 2. Thank you so much for joining me. And is there any last thing that you want to throw out before we go into our closing?
Let's see. No, only that I think I kind of mentioned that I just really want women to understand that there are those of us who don't gatekeep. I love interacting with women. Women respond to my newsletters. I have an Instagram that has nothing on it because I've literally been word of mouth for so long, but these things are growing. So they can find me. I mentioned wholewomanhood.com, and I have every woman start in the same place. It's just a free starter kit. Do you do these things? I have yet to have a single woman that finds me that says yes. And where we get more support, we create space, like you said, for power, for vitality, for resilience, rather than frustration and anger and all of that. And I see myself in so many of these women. That's why I share my story freely. They can get in touch. I love it. And I can't wait to talk about hormones.
Oh, awesome. Thank you so much. And you guys, we are going to wrap it up for this episode of Unapologetically Woman. Thanks for joining us today. Learn more about our guests in the description below. Download your free period tracker to stay in tune with your energy levels, mood, cravings, and your flow. Interested in being a guest on our show? Complete the form in the description. Leave a comment below to share your thoughts on today's episode and be entered into our surprise monthly giveaway. For women looking for a natural way to relieve menstrual cramps, try live resin gummies to ease menstrual cramps. The link is available in the description. Thanks for tuning in. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more empowering content. This is Unapologetically Woman.